drowning senses in the ether of your sweat, your tears, your sweet salt and offering.
Unduration is a week-long symposium bringing together 5 durational performance artists for a week of creative practice, critical research, public sort of vulnerability with our artistic practice. And we're doing this at a critical moment for rediscovering what it is to be a live performing body in front of a live audience. The artists met each other on a Sunday night, and it was a really quick turnaround to try and get to know each other, figure out what different sort of research we're doing around site and space and time particularly, and then create a durational event to take place on Thursday.
It's a really perfect amount of time because it's enough time to get to know each other, to sort of let things unfold organically, and it's not too much time to really go deep so that you start second guessing it. Yeah, I'm really excited by the process. It's a little scary. I don't quite know what's going to happen, but I think it's going to be interesting and cool.
Monday morning is structured around a question of how to arrive. So how to arrive together as bodies that don't know each other, how to arrive to an environment that people are unfamiliar with.
I always work site specifically, so for me, responding to the space that I'm in or the site is always going to spark some ideas. Like when I walk around, I can see things happening, and that's like what inspires me more than determining something in advance and then placing it into a space.
Well, we have 24 hours.
What are the 24 hours that we have again?
Whenever we want.
Yeah, but starting sometime on Thursday.
We could start at 12:01 on Thursday.
Hello everyone, my name is GOODW.Y.N. I hail from New York City. I am a performance artist, a interdisciplinary artist, a poet, you name it, I've done it.
So Monday afternoon, I invited the artists to share their practice to a public audience by doing something. The first artist who shared their practice was GOODW.Y.N.
And the reason why I'm choosing to explore sexuality is because I want to answer a fundamental question. Can my body be loved as is? Disabilities and weight and all. I look at my own body in wonderment. Its curves, its flab, its soft brown skin. The sight so akin to me now.
Verónica Peña is an artist who throughout COVID has been suspending themselves and floating in a water tank that they built in their home environment. And one of their desires was to get out of the tank for this week, but they're still really interested in breath. So Verónica shared a breathing practice with the audience and invited the audience to join her in that breathing practice so they could feel what it's like to sort of work with breath in an intentional way. Marilyn Arsem has a practice where she's often thinking about aging.
I am probably at least through 3/4 of my life. And it makes me want to pay attention and really be as aware of everything that I can be in every moment.
And at this moment, as she's aging as an artist who's been making work for 4 decades, she's really thinking about the aging body as well. Marilyn asked audience members to close their eyes. She then sort of altered the time-space with a sound experiment. And if the audience chose to open their eyes, they would discover a body that was covered under a black blanket on the floor. So Marilyn's playing with encounter, how to change someone's relationship to presence, and also a certain image of a body that you may or may not encounter.
So I think a lot about micro and macro, and in terms of bodies in space, I'm always thinking of it from a bird's eye point of view, and like my tiny little human body on this really big planet where there are many other species connecting.
Sarah Cameron Sunde had audience members create a map of their day, tracing their body through physical space and time.
Pick the point then where you started your day.
Suspended there. But this is so incredibly kind of dangerous without anything. So today has been time to think like, is the beam going to hold my weight? Or can my body react to the fabric in a way that I can hold it for 7 hours? The performance is 7 hours. So today is like a very process-based, experimental day. Physically, what I was thinking right now is that the fabric is getting against my ribs, and that doing this for 7 hours is going to be something. Many things happen physically and mentally. I may scream, I may talk, I may sleep, who knows.
This is sunrise. See how hard it is once you go off the clock?
I know. Sunrise would
This
not
is-
be the exact same.
Oh. Okay, so on this piece of paper are 5 chunks of time for people to take, and they're all about 12 to 13 hours. So I started to build this based on what people said, and so I had Marilyn going in at sunrise.
The other day, you talked about starting at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Her
Yeah.
24 hours starting at 10 a.m.
Oh, so yeah.
So, and whereas I think about starting at 6:30. So a.m. at sunrise. So it's
But what I'm saying is we don't have the support for everyone to have their own 24 hours. So if it starts at 6 a.m., it needs to end by 6 a.m.
It's nice because, it's not that we so often had the opportunity to work together in this way. So I think it's nice to compromise, for each of us, to compromise maybe something that we want for letting something collective to happen.
Wednesday's a moment where we had to make choices. We had to figure out the timing of the pieces. We had to think about, make concrete decisions around space.
I just think the idea of us giving and communicating while at rest is fascinating to me. So I'm like, all right, whatever y'all want to do, I'm down.
At sunrise, there was just a faint drizzle of rain. There were a few bodies kind of milling around, and Marilyn was sitting in a chair reading. Marilyn had decided to read a book about Chernobyl throughout the day. So Marilyn was really setting a tone that was already pretty heavy, but also a tone of thinking about, what histories do we give attention to? What kind of time do we spend with history that drastically impacts our reality in this moment, in the here and now?
Alexander hoped that he and his new family would have a place of their own within a year, an unthinkable prospect elsewhere in the Soviet Union. And when she first visited him there at the end of December 1983, she saw none of the city's vaunted beauty.
When I started 4 hours later, there was I literally stepped into the piece and it was like thunder and lightning. Everything is crashing down. I immediately started to cry. So there was sort of a heaviness, but also a release, that was happening all day long. And I sense from when people would come and stand with me, maybe people would stand close enough that I could sort of hear a little bit of what they saw somewhere else. I sensed that was at play all day long, something that was really demanding your attention and really calling you to be present with what was happening, but then also a desire for release from that.
Even though my body has been partially or fully nude, I have never explored sexuality in the work. I've explored anti-Blackness, I've explored body politics, but never the idea of desire and sexual attraction or intimacy.
I grew up in a world where I learned some things about plants and trees, but not as much as I would like to. And I think that many of us in contemporary society don't know about our sisters and brothers who are the trees and the plants. And I think we would be a lot better off in the world if we reconnected with some of that knowledge.
I guess rising to the challenge of struggling for whatever is being struggled for in that moment is a big part of my practice or some of my curatorial instincts, that we're not creating durational works to be in resistance to something. We're showing what a body might struggle for.
Meters and continued towards the next village, nothing. He brought the helicopter down further to just 25 meters, but the needle of the radometer didn't move. Bulletin suspected that it just wasn't sensitive enough to get a reading. Passing the final turning point on the survey flight plan, Bulletin began following the railroad line.
Verónica wanting to push her practice into a really different environment, like wanting to hang in this nude actually was the intention for 7 hours, as it would get colder and colder during a rainstorm. And I knew that that demand would be way too high. But I didn't bring artists here to make a performance that they knew they could make. I brought artists here to challenge their practice. The wind was so strong, I could hear Marilyn reading, even though her voice was so small. So we were very far apart as far as where our performances were happening, but each of us had these moments of connection. One, for me, it was like I could hear Marilyn's voice. There was a time when I could see GOODW.Y.N in the window from the building that I'm facing. There's a moment where Sarah Camera's Sunde walks out of the main building where the repose room was and starts walking backwards, which was something that we were doing in practice together on the walk that we took together. We were very far apart and we were all on these individual time zones, but those moments of connection are part of what I love about durational performance. You can't choreograph it, you can't script it, and it happens in the real time. And it always happened when I was like a little depleted and just like, needed that connection. What happened was directly pointed back to one of the challenges and one of the questions of the whole event, which was, how do we come together as a collective if we're also in these like individual spaces of orbit and time and space? So what happened at the end was really that same negotiation just coming to the surface in the performance event. So people starting to come and say, maybe the rain has been hard enough and it's time to stop. Maybe everyone needs to go back to the repose room. Maybe we need to reconvene. Maybe the body actually is, maybe we're done at this moment. And this investigation that we put together in just 3 days, has come to sort of its natural end. At some point, the collective decision was made, we should all end together in the repose room. closing the performance by closing the curtain of the repose room. As a curator, I'm obviously going to be concerned about any body that I put into a situation or sort of, work with as artists, as colleagues, as people working with one another. We know that this is a pretty quick process to come together, create an event, and then perform it on such short time is already a huge ask. So you add the rain environment and it makes the piece incredibly more difficult, exponentially more difficult.
I just want to add, I've done a lot of performances, but that is probably the heaviest, longest rain that I've worked in outdoors.
And so of course there's concern and there's care and there's sort of wonder about how that is impacting the performers in the piece. But that struggle is maybe underlying a lot of people's state in everyday life. And so it is about, letting that kind of rise up.
We have to take the word performance very carefully, because not to infer that a performance isn't real. And all of my colleagues were in performances, and they were, their bodies, their minds were in real situations. My screaming, my walking, the agony that has been displayed that I don't like to show, I perform in order to evoke, but I can't tell you how to feel. I can't give you that answer and say, what is the contract? Because I'm not entertaining you. I'm here to evoke.
If people leave a durational performance asking themselves a lot of questions, from the most basic to what did I just experience and how do I contextualize that in sort of my daily life or my interactions, to the more political or fundamental of why are they struggling, or what is happening? Those questions are really, really important, particularly in these moments where these encounters cause discomfort, cause confusion, maybe cause boredom, maybe cause frustration. Durational performance is not entertainment, right? It's a human body in front of you in real time and space. And so you should hopefully leave with a lot of questions.